Hello and welcome to our webinar on property casualty insurance. My name is Eric Danielson. I'm the Communication and Client Services Administrator for AFP. We will be recording this webinar and recording future webinars as well. And we will also be holding a Q&A session afterwards. Now, we will stop recording before the Q&A. And this video for the webinar will be posted on our website within the next few days. So in order to make sure this presentation runs smoothly, we have muted all mics and disabled your videos. So if you have any questions at any point, just use the Zoom chat icon. So you'll just use your menu, click a little chat bubble, and it'll pop up with a window for you, and you can type in whatever you need, any questions or comments or anything like that. Now, once we're finished and we get to the Q&A, at that point, we will go ahead and unmute your audio and allow questions. So if you do have any suggestions for future webinars, we encourage you to post those in the chat as well, or shoot us an email after the presentation. So with that, I will hand things off to Nathan and Bart.
All right. Thank you, Eric. And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our March webinar, which is on property and casualty insurance. Insurance may be boring, but I guarantee that this webinar will not be. We are joined today by Bart Griffin of Griffin and Lance Insurance Agency. I don't know where your little title went there on the slide, Bart, but if you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get going.
Sure. Yeah, this is actually my 42nd year in the business. Excuse me, Griffin Lance. We have 7 agents, 2 locations, one in Grandview, one in Dublin. And besides property and casualty, we also do life insurance and commercial insurance.
Very good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you for joining us. So let's get right into it. Property and casualty insurance. What is property and casualty insurance? It is actually 2 types of insurance that you'll typically find in one policy. The property insurance covers your personal property, such as your home, your vehicle, your personal property that may be in your house, in your garage, outbuildings, things like that. The casualty insurance covers your liability from damage to another person or another property. And so we're going to look a little bit more in depth at these types of coverage. So what are some common types of insurance claims? We listed a few here. The fastest growing homeowners insurance claim is dog bites. And this was something, Bart, that I was a little shocked when you told me that. But what's going on with this? Why are dog bites suddenly becoming such a big homeowners insurance claim?
I think it's just because more people have dogs and more people like dogs. And when you have that many of them running around, it just tends to happen. The claims are usually pretty substantial. We paid one last year and over 90,000. And they're usually involve children who may not know how to approach a dog, and oftentimes they get bit near the face.
Wow.
And sometimes it can be small. It can be a small claim, but to actually settle the claim or a small injury, it still ends up, because it's a child, it usually ends up being a higher settlement. But and maybe there's some people out there that maybe could have more training with their dogs. I don't know, but I think that's just the bottom line. There's just more dogs running around.
Yeah. So is this something specific with the dog bites that folks need to look at their specific policies, homeowners insurance policies? Is this something that is standard on all homeowners policies?
Yeah, that's a very good question because it's changing right now, or has been changing the last couple years. Um, we used to have a couple companies that wouldn't even ask if you have a dog. Okay, now all of them ask, and all of them have a restricted dog list.
Okay.
And sometimes you might be shocked at some of the dogs that are on those lists. Um, and they also are offering the homeowner the opportunity to just exclude coverage for their dog. Okay. So you can save money if you're willing to exclude coverage for your dog. Most people don't take advantage of that, but there are people taking advantage of it that don't have a dog. So that way, the person that doesn't have a dog cannot have to pay for the people that do, you might say, or to some degree. But yeah, I would definitely talk to my agent and just, I think it helps knowing that there's more claims. You understand that this is happening, so they're making an adjustment. But you might want to, now, if you bought a policy and you later got a dog that's on the restricted dog list, you're going to be covered. Okay. But where they're really checking people out is when they sell a new policy or someone comes to a company new. So that would be the thing when they start asking, is just to know. But gosh, I had a client the other day that said he just wished he'd have known before he got his dog that it might be the kind of breed that's on the restricted dog list. But of course, that's after the fact, and it's too late. But
yeah. And as you were talking about that, it just it made me think that with it being such a prevalent insurance claim, and knowing that it will often involve children, it just makes me think that it doesn't mean that the dog is aggressive or being aggressive. It could just be, a dog that's feels like it's backed into a corner, or isn't used to the way it's being interacted with. So it's
right.
yeah.
That's the sad part about it, because if there's a dog bite, your insurance company, and if it's substantial at all, they're going to ask you to put that dog down.
Wow.
And and if you try to get insurance from someone else and you've had a prior dog bite, they're all going to say the same thing. So that it is terrible. It's terrible because some of these dogs, it was not their fault.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, moving on then to don't know how to transition that, so we'll just go right into the fastest growing auto insurance claim right now, is car theft. So from one positive topic to another, what are we seeing there? I know we see a lot of news headlines, but what are you guys seeing just with your clients?
It's amazing how often it's people under the age of 18 that are stealing them. It's amazing how often that they're wrecking the cars almost intentionally. I think in some cases they are actually wrecking them intentionally. And of course, it was the Kias and the Hyundais, and most people have seen the reports on that. There's some companies that won't write them now in those particular years.
Yeah.
The good news is you can now get the steering wheel locks,
Right.
which can really prevent it. And just to bring a little good news into the situation, as far as car insurance goes, because used cars have gone up so much in value, when we get totaled cars now, people are getting much more money for their car than they ever thought they would.
Yes.
Okay. And that's been very positive.
Yes.
But it's also caused rates to jump up a little bit.
Right. There's always another side to that coin. And you mentioned about the Kias and the Hyundais. My wife drives a Hyundai, and sure enough, we got a letter in the mail a couple weeks ago from Hyundai asking us to set up an appointment with a dealer so that they could put that, I don't know what the device is called, but an anti-theft device onto the car. So yeah, some good news there. And hopefully then the other car manufacturers will just take security more seriously, and it'll cause home or auto buyers to take it more seriously as well when they're looking at new vehicles. So a couple other common insurance claims that we've seen. No water damage for finished basements, and then a couple others that we have as well is drastically underinsured homes. I know as we were talking earlier, we talked about roof damage from hail and wind. Anything that's really jumping out to you in those regards?
I think with regards to the water damage, it's probably timely too this time of year. There's a lot of rain. I rarely see a homeowner's policy that doesn't have the water backup coverage on it now. I think the thing for people to review probably now is because of inflation is to maybe look at the amount of coverage that they have for water damage. Where we used to sell 5,000 or 10,000 before, we're now finding people picking up 25,000, and of course if they have a finished basement, going on up to 50 or $100,000
Wow.
of water backup coverage. But we pay a lot of claims in that area, and quite honestly, it's an agency policy here that we wouldn't sell a homeowner's policy without that coverage. But it is optional with a lot of companies, so you might want to make sure that it's on there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, just what you said with the prices of the mitigation there with water damage going up so much. That's why it's so important to review these policies periodically so that, you know these things, you see them, you deal with the claim, so you know an accurate amount of coverage to have there. So, all right, very good. All right, let's move on. So what does my homeowner's insurance cover? We just talked about a few things that are covered and a few things that we need to make sure are covered. But let's go through these. The property portion of your homeowner's insurance covers the home itself as well as the personal property in your home. There are a number of riders that you can have added, such as for jewelry, artwork, furs, things like that you may need to have appraised in riders or extra coverage added to those policies to make sure that all the contents of your home are accurately covered. The casualty portion of your homeowner's insurance covers the liability that may come with owning your home and the property that is in that. And then just keep in mind that every insurance policy has limit to the amount it will pay on a claim. If you've ever looked at your insurance declarations page, you see a whole lot of numbers there. And those are the limits to your insurance policy that the insurance company will pay on certain types of claims. So that's just an overview of what homeowners insurance covers. All right, let's go to the next slide here. Some often overlooked areas, water damage, as we've talked about a little bit, cybersecurity, which is really becoming a big issue, utility lines, and also not having an umbrella policy. Bart, what are some things that are really sticking out to you with these areas, and maybe any others that you have seen come up recently?
Yeah, the utility line coverage is a great add-on that these insurance companies have started to put on their policies. It wasn't on most policies probably as recent as 5 or 10 years ago. And because I've been doing this so long, I remember, telling people when they have a broken line out in the yard that typically that's not covered. And, it's several $1,000s depending on, when this happened, to dig up their yard and repair it. Where now we have the peace of mind of being able to tell them we have the coverage, and we're trying to get it on every homeowner's policy we sell now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that definitely happens a lot.
Yeah.
You can almost take the word inflation and relate it to all this stuff, but umbrella policies are obviously very important, but we're having more financial planners tell our clients to increase their umbrellas. To maybe $2, $3, $5 million. We get a lot of that.
Yeah. So what are some examples? Why do we need umbrella policies, and why do we need to be talking about millions of dollars in umbrella coverage?
Yeah. One example, that we've had recently was on a rental property where we paid well beyond. It was actually paid well beyond the umbrella limit.
Hmm.
I think the person had 2 million and they were suing beyond the limit, but it
Wow.
was a rental property where a person, you know, uh, they had handrails on the basement steps and handrails that would probably hold most people, but it didn't hold this person. Okay. I mean, and she fell and she was able to get a very large settlement because she had a terrible injury from falling down the basement steps.
Wow.
But it wasn't that there wasn't handrails there. The handrails gave way.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, so this does happen. And, we had another claim here in our agency just, gosh, it's probably been about a year and a half ago where a youthful driver was down in Cincinnati going to college and somebody had stopped in the middle of the freeway to go out into the freeway to get their phone. Okay. That had dropped out of the truck. And he hit them and their car. It was tight. It was very close to the bridge. I don't know if you've driven down Cincinnati a lot, but there's a lot of curving freeways down there. And
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
poor young guy was going to work out in the middle of the day. And one person got killed, another person got hurt. He was in the hospital for months,
Hmm.
and he was actually attributed at 25% fault.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Yet we paid max on all the policies. Okay. They put 50% fault on the person that went out to get to their phone and 25% fault on the driver that stopped, who was also hurt. But even at 25% liability, we maxed out because the injuries. Of course, there was a death, there was major injuries, and I think at last look, it was somewhere about $1.5 million. I think we paid maybe a little over $1.5 million
Wow. Wow.
on a poor kid that you even question whether he was even at fault at all. You know,
Right.
um,
Hmm.
but that's scary because young drivers do tend to get in more accidents than older drivers. But cybersecurity, is certainly an issue that's becoming more and more popular. We haven't seen a lot of claims in that or on identity theft, but it is happening on
Mhm.
occasion, and I think it's something that's certainly worth reviewing.
Yeah, and most likely something that will just continue to see an increase in claims in those regards. And boy, those illustrations about the umbrella policies, it really is something that we all need to make sure that we have good coverage there, because you never know. Snap your finger and something could happen there. So, yeah, fantastic. I feel like this is a little bit of a downer, these conversations, but it's important. It really is. So thank you for that. All right, moving on then to auto insurance. What do our auto insurance policies cover? Every auto insurance policy contains liability coverage. And this covers any damage that the policy owner causes to another person's property, whether it's vehicle or bodily injury, whatever that case may be. You can also have casualty coverage as well in your homeowner's insurance policy. As we all know, there are a couple of options there, comprehensive and collision. Collision is damage from an auto accident, and comprehensive is damage from any other event, such as hail, or as we often see the case here in Ohio, hitting another animal, i.e. a deer, because they are everywhere. How often do you see, Bart, these claims from hitting a deer or any other animal?
Gosh, I was going to say weekly, maybe every other week on a
Yeah.
deer. But
Okay.
yeah, we see a lot of deer claims.
Yeah, sounds about right. Everybody that lives in Ohio, we have either hit a deer or miraculously almost hit a deer, but somehow avoided them. So that's just part of driving around here, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah. it's you mentioned the downer, but we looked at something one time, and I guess the 10 most stressful things that people go through. We were looking at that list one time in a lifetime,
Mhm.
and 9 of them involve calling your insurance agent. Okay, and
Doesn't that make you
so
feel good?
we get a lot of that, and almost to the point where sometimes you feel like a therapist. I
Mhm.
mean, there have been times where I've certainly felt that way. I just before I got on this webinar, I felt like it talking to a friend that's going through a claim. So,
Mhm.
I think getting good service from your agent
Yeah.
and an experienced agent can also be helpful in that regard.
Yeah, and that's going to lead us right into our next slide here. How can I make sure my coverage is adequate? And that is to review your coverage with your agent. And I would say if you don't have one, it sure would be nice to get one. I think so. So what are some things that your agent can review? Making sure your coverage is sufficient, making sure that your premium lines up with your coverage amounts, and then verifying that your insurer is on strong financial footing. Anything that you want to add to that about reviewing coverage with your clients, or maybe somebody who isn't a client but just wants to make sure that their insurance meets their needs?
Well, I think it does point out one advantage to an independent agent who can
Mhm.
shop multiple carriers.
Mhm.
And obviously I'm putting in a plug for myself, but versus calling a company that just has one rate
Yeah.
and having to call several of those when you can call one agent and maybe even get more quotes than you could get from those 3 or 4.
Mhm.
But no, I think probably now more than ever with inflation, it's important to review.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things have happened awful fast in the last 2 or 3 years as far as these increased costs, and you just want to make sure your coverage is sufficient. And
Mhm.
yeah, nobody wants to buy insurance from a company that's losing money either. I think you
Yeah.
want to make sure they can meet the claims. So
Yeah, and that leads us right into our next slide. We were talking earlier, and I was just remembering how a few years ago we were all getting checks in the mail from our insurance company because they weren't paying any auto claims because nobody was driving, and now our car insurance is going up 20+% for our premiums. So it really is important to make sure that your insurer is on sound financial footing. One of the things that you had mentioned to me is that the insurance industry is going through a difficult market cycle. I know I kind of alluded to that, but do you want to just explain to us real quick what that is and why that's something that we should know about?
yeah, or yes, and cars going up in value is a big has been a big factor, both new and used, and it happening so fast that the industry didn't have time to catch up with it. And then of course construction cost and building cost, and a roof that was $10,000 3 years ago is now 15. Okay,
Mhm.
and we're even seeing it now. Just recently, I've noticed it in you mentioned homeowners policies on scheduled jewelry. People are going back, you know, maybe because they've read some of this or heard some of this about inflation. They're going back and getting their jewelry reappraised, and I'm shocked by what jewelry has
Oh,
gone up in value.
interesting.
And so the items they had scheduled on their policy just a few years ago can be worth a whole lot more money now.
Hmm.
And so that's another example of where it's happening. But and all these things, because they've had to pay these higher claims, they're turning around and they're hitting the consumer with the increases. There's no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think we're all feeling that. And I think a lot of us have seen the headlines as well about losses that some of these insurers are taking, and even lawsuits out there against some of these big insurers that are hesitating or are underpaying on their claims. So It really is a time to review your policies and make sure that everything's in line. So of course, inflation erodes our insurance protection. So we've got to look at those coverage numbers. And then just the last couple of things here is that our insurance needs can change over time. When was the last time that you reviewed your insurance coverage? So that's just a great reminder that insurance policies are not just set it and forget it. We need to look over these. How often, Bart, do you think that we should review these policies with our agents?
You know, we tend to, you know, because we're an independent agent and we shop so much, that we tend to do it almost annually.
Okay.
Because people want, you know, especially right now, because people are seeing the pricing changes. You know, and you know, one other thing about an independent agent, we figured out we probably spend 75% of our time shopping rates.
Wow.
Okay. For existing clients. Okay. So if you're looking at our competitors like State Farm, Geico, and USAA, they're not doing that. They don't have to do it. So, you know, an independent agent does not only make sense, but it's also, quite frankly, they're just working harder. They're just working harder to keep you because they need to shop for you.
Yeah.
And you have that peace of mind that they're able to do it.
Yeah. Well, it gives the big insurers more time to make commercials, which is very important. So I'm sorry, that was a snarky comment. Bart, thank you so much for your time. This was really great information. And we'll see here if we have any questions. So Eric, you can do what you need to do with the recording.